to my channel. Today we're going to do some unboxing because I haven't done that in a while, and it's true that the month of October particularly, but also November, were months in which I received a lot of rewards from Kickstarter campaigns that I had backed at the beginning of the year, but then that, let's say, faded a little bit, and now what I'm actually acquiring as decks are decks from my wish list for Christmas. And obviously I'm very curious, so I've been a good girl. I haven't gone ahead and just opened them because I really wanted to do that on camera. So we're going to start, and the first one is this one here. I have not seen this deck anywhere, I have to say, in any kind of social media platform. It is called the Cosmic Crossroads Oracle by Amanda Lynn Ashling. So Amanda is also the creator of an oracle deck that I absolutely love, and as a matter of fact, it was in my top 10 mass market decks that have been released this year, and it's called the Inner Child Oracle. And I kind of knew nothing about this oracle deck in specific, but because it is made by this same creator and I really trust her because I really like the Inner Child, I thought, let's just check this out. And I also have to say, when it comes to words, sometimes I feel like I'm being called to buy a deck simply by the title. And it happens to us, to many of us in many cases. Perhaps we feel called to watch a movie because of the title, or perhaps to read a book because of the title. I do believe that there is something about the way in which a creator relates to their own creation and names them. So it's almost as if it were a rite of passage to find the right name for a creation, whether it's a tarot deck or a book or a work of art. And so if this name calls to us, I kind of tend to answer positively, as in acquiring the product, because I believe that there's a reason. And I might be completely wrong, and maybe I don't like this deck. I don't know. But in any case, let's just give it all the options that we can, and see whether it will resonate with me or not. And if you know of this deck, please let me know in the comment below, because sometimes I do get really good recommendations from you guys, and I'm always very grateful, because it is impossible with all of the decks that are being produced almost on a daily basis. It is almost impossible to keep up with all of their new releases. So let me just zoom in, because obviously we're going to have a proper look at the cards. So this is released by Hay House, and it is a slightly different format from what we used to when it comes to Hay House Oracle decks. And not that it makes any kind of difference for me. As a matter of fact, I kind of prefer this tarot format rather than the usual Oracle one. I'm not complaining at all. I'm happy with what I've got. So this is the guidebook, and this is Amanda. And we're just going to have a quick look, because this is indeed a first impression. So obviously, sometimes I have good first impressions, sometimes I have a little bit less good first impressions, but I never stop at that, because I also want to get to know the deck and try and get to do at least a little bit of a deep dive whenever I do a deck interview. But a deck interview, I usually prefer to do them for tarot decks, not necessarily for oracle decks, but it also depends. So I like the fact that it talks about obviously the oracle and how to use it, but then it also mentions here, I don't know if you can see, common ritual tools used in these oracle bowls: one fireproof and filled with dirt or sand, one suitable for holding water, candles, essential oils, incense, and a safe holder for containing the while it burns, matches, music, paper, pen. Additional ritual tools used rarely in this oracle: broom, body oil, eye mask, feather or fan, headphones, map, natural cord, able to be burned, specific herbs noted in ritual, timer. So obviously the name Crossroad, as I said, calls to me. Okay, so we can see here that you don't have the thumbprint of the card, which is not a problem because we have the cards, but you do have the description. And then it really tells you to go deeper into the meaning of the card by giving you, for example, a suggestion for a ritual, as you can see here. So it tells you about tools, it tells you about crystals, And I'm thinking I'm actually going to use this because I'm creating some rituals with my members. The Sunlight and Starlight, we're doing the deck study of the Wild Wood Tarot. And I'm going through all of the material that I'm going to produce for my members. And I'm thinking about creating a ritual for the lovers. So the Forest Lovers, which is a card renamed after the Lovers card in a Major Arcana. And I'm looking into these possibilities. So it's something that is actually really looking interesting to me. And then we got the affirmations, obviously. That is something more common, let's say, related to an oracle deck. But there's always a ritual. I really, really like this. And as I was saying, so this is calling to me because of the name Crossroad. Crossroad is very important to me as a word because I have found myself in my life many, many times at a crossroad. Whenever I needed to take a decision that was a very important decision that would have had quite, powerful consequences in my life. And I feel the pressure. I'm not crazy about the backs, but it's okay. That is not a deal breaker for me. It is obviously a collage deck, and you can see that there is a bit of a mix between modern elements and oldish or vintage kind of looking elements. And I love the fact that we have actually very communicative, very talkative kind of keywords. So that is a plus. So adventure, attachment. So whenever I found myself in my life, and I still find my life at a crossroad, I always try and gather as much positive energy as possible, because obviously in many, many cases, it is really deciding about your life. I'm thinking this will pair up really nicely with the Relative Tarot by Carrie Paris, because there seems to be some kind of a vintage look to the characters on the cards. Just as a side tangent. And so as I was saying, whenever I find myself at the crossroad, I always try and get as much help as I can. And so, for example, let me see if it's here. It might not be, I don't remember where I put it, but once I even purchased there you go. So this is a spell for a crossroad. It's literally called Crossroads. And, it contains a few of these elements: barley, red peppercorn, juniper berry, and cypress, because I actually strongly believe in any kind of ritual that can help you make the best possible decision. Whenever you need to take a decision, sometimes you find yourself in a two of swords situation because you might not have enough information about the decision you're going to take. And so having an oracle deck other than what I'm already using, so the spell jar and also some particular essential oils, some particular crystals, etc., it's always welcome. I always welcome any other tool that I may consider using, or may eventually, give me some suggestions on which direction to take. Obviously, a crossroads suggests that you find yourself at a point in your path in which you're not necessarily sure whether you want to go one way or another. It is a 44 card, so we're happy with the number of cards. And it is your typical Hay House cardstock. I mean, we know these kind of cardstock now, not much different. What I can say is, because the surface of the card is slightly smaller, because it does have a tarot format rather than an oracle format, the bounce is a bit stiffer. This doesn't change anything. It just gives you probably a positive feeling of sturdiness that tells you that you can use this deck even more. So for now, I'm actually liking it. I'm already thinking about pairing it up with the other decks. As I said, the Relative Tarot, but also, for example, the Nightweight Tarot will pair up really, really nicely with this deck and other collage tarot decks that I've got. I have recently put out a video that I called my top 10 collage decks and why. So I've actually been rating them and ranking them, and I really like the possibility of working with this deck. And there's another thing that I have to say. So I was born in the year of the tiger according to the Chinese horoscope, and obviously whenever I see a tiger in prominence, because this is obviously has been chosen by the creator as a front, that's your marketing tool, showing the image on the box. So absolutely want want to feel whether there is something there with the tiger and the energy of the tiger. So this is the first deck that I wanted to talk about today. And then I finally pulled the trigger and I got myself the Familiar Field Oracle. Ironically, there's only Oracle today, Oracle decks rather than Tarot and Oracle decks. And it is probably one of those months in which I feel like I definitely need to surround myself with really positive energies because of Missy, my cat, being so sick. And I'm really, you guys can't tell, but this is a major effort for me because we have been to the vet this morning and the news were not good. And so this is a major effort for me to just keep my tone of the voice steady and being able to form sentences, because right now my brain is just in panic mode. But I also believe that tarot and oracle decks exist for a reason. They are part of my life for a reason. And I strongly believe that there is a lot of soothing energy, for me at least, to go through these cards, look at the cards, and obviously, also detach myself from the present situation and try and reach this inner calm that I need in order to take decisions. And so this is actually helping. So this is a US Games deck, and it's by the same creator, Hannah Elizabeth Fofana, of the Field Tarot. So if the name sounds familiar, it's because the Field Tarot was released a few years ago. It is a really beautiful deck, and the artwork will look very familiar if you do have that deck. Comes with a two-part box. So this is they're all mass market decks today, and they're all very affordable. I believe I paid $34 for the Familiar Field and just as much for the Cosmic Crossroads. This one comes with a book. This obviously it's minimal in the sense that obviously we don't have the thumbprint of the card, which is not a problem. We do have a few keywords associated with the animal, and then there's a little bit of an explanation, which is always very much appreciated. It does seem to divide the animals into categories. So we see here, for example, the sky. So I'm expecting that to be birds, bat, bee, obviously flying, butterfly, crow, and dragonfly as well, and eagle. So it is rather easy to understand when it comes to the dynamics of the deck. Let me just open this one. That is one thing that I don't like, I don't love in decks, not just the US Games, but other publishing company do the same. If there is a plastic wrap around the deck and the outside of the box, I don't really want to see more plastic, because it's not exactly something wonderful for the environment to have all this plastic. So if the deck is already protected by a layer of wrap up outside the box, of course this is additional protection from eventual humidity. I understand that, but I would rather, just see a bit less plastic, but I don't want to preach because that's not my personality. So it looks here as if we're going in alphabetical order. Yep. And so really good cardstock, I have to say. I like this card from US Games. It's probably one of my favorites. And as a matter of fact, if those of you who have been starting collecting back in the 80s, if you remember, US Games had a fantastic cardstock that was really buttery to the touch. And I do have a few decks from the 80s from US Games, and I really do like that cardstock. I don't know what happened. I don't know why they switched to different ones. Obviously, it's a different formula, and I understand sometimes it's for cost purposes, reducing the cost of producing a deck. Sometimes it's just a matter of contracts. They found a different contractor for the printing, so it's perfectly fine. But I do wish that they would reconsider using that kind of cardstock, because it was really, really a fantastic tactile experience for me. So I was expecting to feel already familiar with this deck, and I do. Indeed, I do remember the Field Tarot, so it feels very much like that deck to me. The choice of colors, for example, the very distinguishable type of art style. It is a beautiful deck, and I think that what I ask of an oracle deck specifically when it comes to an animal focused or themed oracle deck is to be able to relate to the animal that has been depicted on the card and the keywords that are on the card. So if it's an animal deck that doesn't have keywords, I honestly have to say I'm not attracted to it. I would probably not I'll buy it. Even if maybe the graphics are fantastic, the aesthetics are amazing, because I do need keywords. I don't have the necessary knowledge to use and enjoy using an animal deck when it doesn't give me a keyword, at least one keyword. Obviously, if it's a tarot deck, it's a different manner because I will read it according to my knowledge of a tarot deck. But when it's an oracle deck, you're supposed to know the spirit of these animals. And if I don't know them, then I will feel a bit thrown off and uncertain on how to read the cards. But this one does. And it's not only one keyword, it's actually three, I believe, consistently throughout the whole decks, which is always appreciated. So this is the Familiar Field Oracle. I'm quite happy. I also like the backs, which is these scaly kind of translucent kind of colors. And then we're moving on to a really odd deck. There's no other way in which I can describe this. Maybe psychedelic. And I have never seen this around. Again, I found it in my Kinokuniya branch in Sydney. And I was really enthusiastic when I saw it. It's called Cosmic Dreamscape Astrology Oracle deck. It comes with 72 cards for daily guidance inspired by the mystical practice of astrology. This is by Nina Khan, and the publisher is Knock Knock. Is it? Knock Knock, yes. So the publisher is unknown to me. Please let me know if you know of this deck or if you know of this publisher. It looks like it's indeed called Knock Knock. Because I'm very much interested to see. It looks like I haven't seen this deck. I only had the possibility to look at a couple of images, the very few images you can see if you Google it and you go into images. And I'm very interested to see the quality of the deck itself. It comes with this box, which is, as you can see, a wraparound magnetic box. And the colors, as I said, very psychedelic to me. This reminds me so much of, you've been probably familiar with a few songs from the 60s, a few videos from the 60s, a few movies, also a few books released in the 60s about this kind of psychedelic experiencing. And it does remind me a little bit of Yellow Submarine by the Beatles, but also other music, but songs, as I said, but also other media that was focusing on this kind of a psychedelic movement. Or it's, sorry, I was just trying to open it, but just realized that it doubles up here in, as you can see. So I actually have to lift the flap, the external flap. Okay, so there's a bit of glue that was there, but it's okay. So the inside looks like this, which is quite nice, I have to say. And it looks like it comes with a guidebook, which is this one here. Definitely Knock Knock production. I don't know them. Again, if you do know of them, then let me know. Hi, Star Baby. Yes, hi. Of course, for me, it's the star resonates a lot because being an Aquarius, of course, I relate to the star card. I want to study astrology, but I am looking into the Vedic astrology rather than Western astrology for now. I do believe that Vedic astrology is actually more attuned to study my personality because it does refer a lot to the physical aspects of a person. So you have also a differentiation between body types, which I find extremely interesting. And also Ayurvedic medicine actually is based a lot on looking at a person, looking at the color of the skin, the color of the irises, the color of the cornea, even under the nails. There's a number of things that are actually very important. The inside of the ear. I've been to India several times and I've been to see. I was very sick once. It just so happens when you're a traveler, sometimes you get sick. There's no two ways around that. I was very, very sick in Pushkar. And I went to see an Ayurvedic doctor, and I don't know whether it was because, the illness made its course, or I was actually taking stuff that was actually improving my well-being, but I got a lot better afterwards. But there's a number of things that have always been fascinating for me. And so this one looks like it's a really cool deck, as in really actually cool deck. But it's also very interesting because it does dig deeper into our knowledge of astrology. These are the backs, very psychedelic as well. as I said, very 60s, you know, that kind of vibes. The cardstock is actually quite glossy. As you can see, it does catch the light, and I'm expecting it not to be the easiest text to fan out. No, okay. I mean, it's okay. It could be better, but it could be much worse for this type of cardstock. It does feel like the cards are kind of sticking together, but generally speaking, in my experience, after a while, it does get better. The more you use a deck, the better it results in its usage. So the Aquarius, which is my sign, it says fly your freak flag. Sorry, I do recognize myself as a freak. We are eccentric. We tend to be a bit weird when you look at us and what we like to do. Fair enough, you know, fair enough. I'm not complaining. Aries blaze new trails, absolutely. So what I really like is not just that obviously you go back to the guidebook to go deeper into the meaning of the cards, but also I like the fact that it does give you a sentence or a message at the bottom of the card, and that is supposed to give us an additional layer of interpretation to the cards themselves, and as a consequence of that, to our own view of these astrological elements. So if technically, I bought this deck because I wanted to have a deeper understanding of the houses, for example, of the position of the planets. What does that mean when something is retrograde? What does it mean when it's first quarter moon? What does it mean when something is in opposition, in quadrant, and all of these kind of, let's say, lexicon, terminology that I'm not necessarily ultra familiar with. And what better way is there to get more familiarity with these? There you go, Mercury dive into the details, absolutely. Than using an oracle deck that is actually really cool. And I do, now that I'm looking at it and I've got it in my hands, I really like it. I feel that it's got very cosmic vibes, psychedelic vibes, and I'm really appreciating this. So this is not, it doesn't feel like one of those decks, oracle decks in specific, that I would want to use in combination with a tarot deck for divination purposes. This feels more like a study deck into, or let's say, understanding a bit more of astrology, and without necessarily having to study astrology from a book, for example. So it's a nice way to approach it. Really liking it. And as I said, it is a mass market deck. It's very affordable. So it didn't break the bank. And I have been seeing this for a couple of times, and I finally decided to buy it. So I am very happy that I did. And now moving on to the last deck, and then I've got something else to show you. So this one is absolutely fantastic. This is called the Alchemists Oracle, and it's by Zoe Sadler, and it's a very recent release by Blue Angel. This one will become available in the US in a couple of weeks. It is already available in Australia, particularly if you live in Australia. I recommend checking out Big W, which is a retailer. It costs $25, so it's very affordable. However, I do have to say that sometimes Big W is not helping the industry because they are selling decks under cost. So if you do your own research, if you want to buy Big W, it's up to you. I'm just saying, if you see this deck at Big W, it will be $25 if you live in Australia. So it's a really, and I mean really, gorgeous deck. I mean, this is the inside of the box, and let me just point this out to you. Ironically, I cannot film the unboxing because I actually filmed with this deck for a video that will come out in a couple of days, in which I will point out all of the mass market decks that are really beautiful that you can find for under $30 Australian, under $20 US, because I strongly believe that we may actually approach the subject of talking about prices in decks. Sometimes we are asked to pay a lot of money, say 60, 70, 80 US dollars for a mass market deck, which is probably the same price as an indie deck. So there is this discussion going on in the tarot community. Why call it mass market, mass produced, if you sell it for such a high price? This one, and so that's the focus on the next video that I will publish is about telling the tarot community that yes, some decks are incredibly beautiful and unfortunately marked up in price, but there's a lot of decks out there that are still mass market, still very, very affordable, and you can do a fantastic job with those ones. This one is one of them. Look at the box. The inside of a box. I would love to have, like, I don't know, adhesives with these characters here, these scenes. I would love to have, the possibility to use them in my journaling. And so this is the deck, but let me talk about the guidebook first. Really interesting. So it is called the Alchemist Oracle. So obviously it is about alchemical procedures, alchemical potions and stuff, elixirs for personal growth and well-being. I like the way in which this is done. There is always a reference to the alchemical element for each and every card, and also a metal. So for example, Deadly Nightshade is referring to the alchemical element of earth and the metal silver. And then you'll be able to see the explanation here. Also, there is an affirmation, and I really like it. Also here, this one is more like an apothecary approach to the substances that are talked about in the guidebook and described in the cards. I really, really appreciate this. I have been studying alchemy for many years. However, when you study alchemy, let's say you have to find your own branch of alchemy to study. And when it comes to elixirs and potions, it's not something that I was considering accessible to me. But when I saw this one, I may actually reconsider, because it is really interesting. And the cards themselves, so the deck is one of the most recent, let's say, formats that Blue Angel has incorporated into their releases, is this format, which is, let's say, slightly bigger, but still in the format of a tarot card, and I really like it. The cardstock is fantastic. I would call this a matte, but it's halfway through. It feels almost reminiscent of a third generation rose petal kind of cardstock. It is absolutely amazing when you use it, shuffles really well. It's fantastic. So this one is very minimalist when it comes to the color palette. You can see that, of course. But what we can see is that we have, for example, astrological references at the back of the card, alchemical references at the back of the card, and then obviously we read about the specific elixir that is presented on the card itself. It is minimalist. I, however, like it very, very much. It pairs up really nicely, but I'll show this in the video from a couple of days from now. It pairs up really, really well with the Poesis Oracle by Andrea Wang, which, by the way, will come out mass market it's already out mass market in the French edition. So if you would prefer not to spend the amount of money for the indie deck and you're comfortable with using French, you can reach out for the mass market edition. I do not know whether there's any plans to push it also in the English market for a mass market production. Possibly not, I have no idea. But in any case, if you do have the Poesis Oracle, it pairs up really nicely with this one. And I also, as a surprise, I'm also pairing it up with another deck, so you will be able to see it in a couple of days' time. I absolutely love the images on this deck. They're really, really nice. It's obviously something very niche, very specific. So if you have absolutely no interest in alchemy, you might want to reach out for a different deck. But let me tell you, some of the keywords at the bottom of the card are very communicative. Some are not. So revive is obviously very easy to read. But when we look at rat's blood, we may have to look into the guidebook, which is absolutely fine, because at the end of the day, I do always recommend reading the guidebooks. I mean, if a creator goes to the extent of writing something about the card that they created, it means that they have a message for us. And I, for one, want to listen to what that message is. In any case, really beautiful. I actually really love this deck. And as I said, $25 Australian, absolutely easy to find and very affordable. And these are the decks that I wanted to talk about today. However, as I said earlier, there is something else that I wanted to talk about. This is going to be very specific, and obviously it's not a book that I recommend to everyone. So it is a book that I bought, and it's called The Neuroscience of Tarot. Now, it is not available as physical book in Australia. It is available as physical book in the US. However, I did get the Kindle edition, so the ebook version of this book. It's by Siddharth Ramakrishnan, PhD. The foreword, by the way, is by our beloved Mary K. Greer. So obviously, we would know Mary K. Greer from a number of books. And I love the fact that there is this combination between looking at neuroscience, so the science that studies the functioning of the brain from a neurochemical point of view, but also from a neurobiological point of view and neurophysical point of view. And what I found absolutely fascinating about this deck, and I do recommend it if you have an interest in neuroscience. If you don't, it might not be it's not difficult to follow. It doesn't use ultra difficult terminology, but I do have to say, if you're not interested in the way in which neurochemistry and neuroscience work, you might not find this comparison between neuroscience and tarot very interesting or appealing to you. If you do like neuroscience, if you like to know why the brain works in a certain way, then the association with intuition and the chemistry on a neurological level of intuition is incredibly fascinating. So this book is fascinating for me. I absolutely love reading it, studying it. I have the ebook edition, but as I said, as soon as this becomes available in the physical format, I would definitely buy it for myself because I want to literally just, underline and study and use it in my journal as well. So it is a fantastic book. I really, really, it is unique. I have never heard, I always thought that there was a link between the way in which the brain works, so neurochemistry and neuroscience, and the intuition that you use when looking at an image from a tarot card. And this is let's say, the way in which this book is developed. So it looks at these kind of links. It postulates the possibility of a link between intuition and neuroscience. It also postulates the fact that some of us may have a more developed intuition because of the chemistry in our brain. And this to me is not just revolutionary, but incredibly hopeful. This is a message of hope that I absolutely love, because it means that as our brains evolve with us throughout the centuries, as we've seen, this is called neuroplasticity. It means that we also have a different way to approach tarot through intuition, which is something that it is so important to me, so fascinating, so incredibly amazing, that I wish there were more studies into this. I wish that more neuroscientists were actually looking into the brains of a tarot reader. I really wish there were, because I believe that there's a lot to be learned by that. Anyway, as I said, it is probably not everyone's cup of tea, but if you want to read it, there's also the possibility to download a sample of the ebook into your phone for free. So I would highly recommend it, just if you want to have a look at what this book deals with, and then you can see the way in which the language is used, and you can determine whether you could find it interesting or not. So I love this book. That was it for today. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great day.